Probably a week ago by the time this video goes up, I surpassed 20,000 subscribers. Look ma, I did it. Although my channel can sometimes be a little all over the place, I do like that as long as it has something to do with trains, I can generally get away with it. This, however, can be both a blessing and a curse. If I would be allowed to nab an analogy from one of the YouTubers I watch, my content is pretty much a shotgun blast of variety, and I can only apologise to anyone unfortunate enough to get caught by the pellets who were expecting one strict type of content. What to me makes it all the more interesting is that the videos with the most views are by far the animations, but I wouldn't really call them the bread and butter of the channel. What they are, though, are excellent slow burners. I'm immensely proud that I can produce something which, over time, so many people have actually watched, to the point my username sometimes gets recognised in other online spaces I enter, often ones completely unrelated to railways. Okay, humble brag over. Now, for the subscriber milestone, I at first wanted to showcase how I made those railway animations and leave it at that. However, I do realise that I'm not likely to get significantly larger with this channel, so the actual special is a two-parter. In this video, I will show behind-the-scenes stuff in my animations, talk about the process, how I made them and such, even delving into the original files if I still have them. And the second part is the obligatory Q&A that I was no way in hell going to avoid. If you have any questions, be it in regards to the content of this video, or in general in regards to Flying Scott, do post them in the comment section below. Right, now for the behind-the-scenes stuff. I can't guarantee I won't ruin the viewing experience for the animations for you, but here we go. The very first attempt to make something with trains in Source Filmmaker was completely undriven by plot. I wanted to exercise if A, I could get the trains to work full stop, and B, if people would be interested in such a thing. A trend with my animations is that I always try something new. I rarely rely on old tricks to make every single shot work. Taking the comments I knew I would receive about Thomas the Tank Engine on the chin, what with the music in the video being an orchestral remix of the Flying Kipper, I was actually surprised that, yes, people were commenting on how I got such things as the head code for a parcels train right. That being said, you can tell Trains A Comin' was the first. Camera work is sloppy and stiff, and none of the models are rigged to anything, so their movement is ungrounded and choppy. I didn't know how you smoothly transitioned between sequences, so when the locomotive slows down, a building conveniently comes into shot, making it less obvious I just divided the clip with the loco running fast as it approaches the building from the right, and slowing down on the left. Sequences are basically pre-made animations that come supplied with some models. I'm happy to say I've moved on from what I was able to produce then. I've said in the past that I was not happy with how I rendered the original Sheep on the Line, with that video being uploaded in 24 frames per second and with just a 720 pixel resolution. However, there's more differences between the updated and the old versions than just the resolution and frame rate. For instance, the headlamp on the locomotive is just under half the size in the remastered version. The remaster also marks the first video where I recreated the shots from Source Filmmaker in Train Simulator so I could get a more appealing soundscape. The sounds already in Source Filmmaker provided by Valve are not really ideal. Perhaps the biggest difference between the old and new Sheep on the Line is the scene with the Scout at the maintenance shed located on the CTF well map. In the old animation, the Scout answering the phone was dressed in actual Scout cosmetics, making it look like he was a lower ranked employee of the Manco Railroad, although the emblems on the locomotive still read British Railways. But in the new version, the Scout wears a suit. The shots are also all just that little bit different. That is because, for some reason, I had not placed the original animation file in the same folder as the rest of the completed animation, so this specific scene was deleted at some point. What you see when you're watching the remastered Sheep on the Line is actually the only piece of completely new animation I had to do for the project, with the same applying to when the suited up Scout arrives to help the engineer and Stoker Scout with their ovine problem. Although not the biggest video I've ever done, Locomotive got more people asking for a sequel than Sheep on the Line did. I have given the idea serious consideration, though I do struggle a bit to write up something a bit more interesting than just, as a certain criticism of my videos put it, watching the trains go by. Back to the original locomotive, I think this is where a lot of things became cemented as staples of my animations, with RED and BLU, or just red and blue, now being two defined entities working the same system rather than the mishmash seen in earlier videos. I'd like to think the pattern of a video opening with dialogue, and then the next couple of minutes consisting out of shots synced to music, only to close with dialogue again, started with locomotive. Even such gags as there being a sheep blocking the line becoming a recurring joke in these videos go a long way to create my own style of video, I think. The model of Dubwheel from the Pokemon series really was a great addition to my SFM library. Locomotive actually uses a fun trick, one I still utilise to this day, to make the Class 08 model look just that little bit better. The plain 08 model always looked a bit bare below the running plate, with the axles of the locomotive being easily visible in any sort of running shot. To mitigate the issue, I always rig concrete blocks to the underside of the locomotive, usually 3 clipping through each other, to give the impression of a chassis. I then colour the concrete block to blend in with the model's frames as closely as possible, and I think I've done a good job at it considering nobody has commented on it yet. Withdrawn was originally known as Final Run during production. Nothing too interesting went on during the animation process, as the video itself is not really interesting in my opinion. I settled on using train simulator recordings for the sounds of the locomotives, and for the double headers I just pasted the same recording twice, but with a bit of a delay. The new thing I tried out with this animation being the coaches traversing a set of points. Someone pointed out that my video shares a resemblance to Simon A.C. Martin's final YouTube episode of the British Railway Stories, his take on the talking trains thing. However, whilst I did use the same music as he did in his video, I cannot with full certainty say it was an intentional nod. I've gone on record before saying Chuggy the Tram is my least favourite video, well, one that I've not bothered to delete anyway, and that remains true to this day. Chuggy was made as a reaction to people claiming my animations took heavy inspiration from Thomas, or were otherwise heavily referencing the little blue tank engine. A cuddly name, Chuggy herself being a bit more animated, and a title with a structure similar to one you'd find on one of the Thomas books, all blend together to make a video which meant to make fun of people who kept asking me to add faces to the locomotives in my animations. On that front it seems to have been successful, as since Chuggy, no one has ever asked me to add faces ever again. The video was also so successful that it broke my analytics for a while, but that's another story. The video itself has a couple nods to things happening around the time. Most of the assets and maps I use come from Valve's 2007 video game Team Fortress 2, and in the background of this shot, the red sniper character from the game, wearing the same loadout as my real-life friend TH, with whom I've shot videos in the past, is shot on sight by a blue sniper. The blue sniper snaps to TH's position as soon as he sees him, reflecting how Team Fortress 2 was left unplayable in 2021 by bots, automated scripts masquerading as real players, instantly killing people as soon as they saw them. In another shot, when Chuggy pulls away with a long train of carts, one of the last wagons has a YouTube play button and a tally as a load. The tally displays the number 5000, a reference to the channel having just reached 5000 subscribers by that time. Chuggy's side plates are actually just a pair of benches from another Valve title, Half-Life, set sideways to conceal Chuggy's motion. Chuggy's model is supposed to be a standard gauge logging locomotive despite being obviously based on something narrow gauge. The biggest drawback of this model is, however, the nonsensical coupling rods, which are also static as a part of the model's mesh. The side plates were thus added to hide the fact Chuggy is basically just sliding along the track. Chuggy's name comes from a comedy routine by Dara O'Brien, where he makes a joke about how the British borrowed the big boring machines which dug the Channel Tunnel, and he calls the machine Chuggy right before remarking how they'll lock it up never to be seen again. And considering that is basically what happens to the little tram in the video, I thought that Chuggy was an apt name. An attempt to give my animation some world building, although set in the existing Team Fortress universe, Railroad Roundabout was an obvious spoof of the BBC's Railway Roundabout programme, spoiled somewhat by my American accent. It was an exercise in trying to make my animated footage look old. I could have done a better job by rendering the footage in 24 frames per second, but to my eye this looks like 30 FPS, and as a consequence, a bit too smooth. The handheld camera wobble effect was achieved by adding keyframes at random moments and moving the camera around with the WASD and Z and X keys on the keyboard, an effect I am quite fond of. I make a point in the beginning of the video to mention the cast metal lettering on the locomotive. This was achieved by taking this small sign, colouring it either black or green depending on the locomotive, and plating it over the BR logo. The cast letters are also a sign which I just shrunk. I've tried using this trick since, but it proved a bit time consuming and too visible when the shots weren't in black and white. So since, I made my own reskins of the models I used to depict Manco ownership. Old Reliable was originally 3 separate animations which I could not get working, so instead I merged together what I had into one video, which is why it is a bit short. Similarly, the video is a bit incoherent. I used some part of the world building I had established, like this single track line in the desert being on a gradient, but other aspects like locos having Manco on their flanks were left out. In this shot, when the diesel hauls the dead 060 away, the kettle is tender first. Yet in the very next shot, the loco is being towed going forwards, despite the rest of the train not having turned around for a switchback explanation. Sloppy workmanship on my part. On a less light-hearted note, a fight broke out in the Old Reliable comment section, with people debating whether the 060 steam loco in the video was a Caledonian Railway Class 812 or a Furness Railway K2. I wonder what type of person would single out those 2 locomotives specifically. Wink. The debate got so heated that the replies quickly devolved to people calling each other slurs, which promptly got the thread deleted. This is why we can't have nice things. Much like how the TF2 Heavy dispatching the train can't have a guard's whistle, so he uses a salt shaker instead. This is the obligatory Polar Express spoof that every train animator has to do at one point. The biggest challenge was trying to keep the shots lit, which admittedly I did struggle with for certain shots. Although the animation itself is relatively straightforward, there is one little illusion I've used to make the blend of American locomotive and British rolling stock less jarring. Whilst the bogies of the Mark Is are still the same size, the bodies of the coaches have been slightly enlarged as to fit in that bit better. Sound of Progress was really for me just about those first 1.5 minutes, as I really just wanted to have an excuse to make old-timey footage again. But I cannot remember if I rendered the footage initially in 24 FPS. I don't think I did, because when I then have to re-render everything in 30 FPS, SFM does like to throw a fit. Overall, the video is a bit directionless, and that shows in the low amount of viewer attention. Here's an interesting video, really one of my favourites. I set myself the challenge of making an animation in a day, and one of the specific requirements for myself is that the end product had to be rendered in 60 FPS, and there had to be ample walk cycles in the animation. Lip syncing and walk cycles are generally the most time-consuming things to animate, so generally whenever I have a character walk short distances, I make sure their legs are out of frame. That way I can cheat by basically having them slide along the floor. Using the wooden cow cutout from TF2 really seemed to fit the tone of the animation, where a nonsensical problem is solved with an equally nonsensical solution. The cow floating up by the strings of the balloons is in itself a reference to Incredible Express, a children's puzzle game centered around building routes for your train, which I've covered in another video, which I shall link in the card and in the description. In the background of this shot you can see Kara's witch hat sitting in the bin, which is a neat segue into... Used less as a proper sequel to Sheep on the Line and more as a way to get Kara into one of my animations in a way where she would play an actual part in the overall plot of the Manco Railroad, the video itself was a mixed success. When it came out, it was met with confusion, which was to be expected. Originally, there was going to be a scene included which showed that Kara is behind the indestructible sheep. However, the video was already looking to be longer than 7 minutes by that point, so I left it out, and in the end the video became 11 minutes. The video does suffer from not having any of the characters voiced beyond the existing TF2 voice lines, which I will rectify in future projects. Perhaps my favourite effect is the one seen here. When Engineer falls into the sheep and pops his head out again, the tiny clumps of wool flying out are actually just small sheep shrunk down, with their legs shrunk and their heads tucked into their belly to give the illusion of a ball. Thoroughbred was another exercise in world building, though this time in soft world building, pushing my reskinning abilities to their hypothetical limits. Whilst the locomotive is a workshop asset and the carriages come from the London Mapmaker asset pack, They were all reskinned to give just that little credit to the idea that Manco's rail network is a lived-in world more than just the short stretches of track seen in the TF2 video game, or that short stretch of line where sheep keep breaking out of the fence. I also spoofed a few shots from other pieces of media, though nobody has picked up on them yet. The train rounding the curve on the viaduct was achieved by positioning the train to be on the actual tracks, and then rigging them to a barrel which I had placed further away to give the impression of the loco negotiating curves smoothly, whilst in actuality the barrel is just acting like a hinge, and the locomotive is tied to the movement of the barrel. Overall, I'm very happy with how Thoroughbred came out. It really shows how far I was able to push the watching the trains go by accompanied with music style of animations. Dank Express was more of an exercise in editing than it was in animation, as the animation really was as close as I could get for a shot-for-shot remake of that one scene from the Polar Express. I was very honest in admitting that I was heavily tracing the Dank Express videos that were all the rage a few years ago with meme creators, and especially Night of Ice by Vo Memes. As an editing exercise though, I think it was very successful, as I learned a few more things I can do with my editing program. And as a recreation of another video, but created with my own footage, I think it goes a long way. The animation itself is flawed in a few places though. Sometimes the carriages can be a bit stiff and the lighting could have been better. The animation process for Dank Express was perhaps the most extensive of any of my animations. I first used 2 separate shots left unrendered to build the surrounding hills and rocks. Then I animated all the action shots, making sure to keep the timing as tight as possible, sometimes literally overlaying the scene from the film over my screen to see if I was messing up. But when all the animating was done, I had to copy and paste all the props from the unrendered scene building shots into the already animated ones, which caused SFM to lag so badly that I'm amazed I can still edit this video on the same machine. Perhaps the most interesting challenge though was the animating of breaking the ice. I couldn't realistically do that without betraying the train wasn't standing on ice but instead on snow. In the end, the London prop pack came to rescue and I made chalky white rocks shoot up out of the ground. Not quite one for one with the film, but perfectly serviceable. Finally, the water model used had an odd interaction with the skybox, as it would reflect onto it, leaving it pink rather than a dark cloudy sky seen throughout the video. Knowing YouTube would heavily compress the final product, I simply placed big grey coloured squares over the pink reflection in the sky, and with compression added to the mix, the squares are basically indistinguishable from the skybox. So, some 3,330 words later, thank you very much for watching. I always had 20,000 as some magic number in my head, with the underlying thought that, well, it's unlikely to happen, and by the time it does happen I will probably be too busy to keep doing YouTube even for fun. And I'm not about to tell you that I'm just going to pack it in, but I genuinely never thought this would happen. To the point, I'm still not really sure if I am making the content you people like to see from me. But thanking you for helping me get there is really all I can do. You've made me feel proud of what I can produce just by me onesie, you've helped me financially through watching my videos, you've given me countless ideas and inspiration to keep going, so like it or not, I'll keep going for the foreseeable future. Like I said some 3,000 words ago, if you want to partake in the Q&A follow-up to this video with any of your questions, feel free to post them down below. And with that, well, I can hardly say here's to the next 20,000 because I don't think that will happen realistically. But what I can say is, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and here's to more to come. Cheerio!